let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. We've gotten our glimpse. The first preseason game has arrived, and we see some guys that are really looking good, some new faces to this Seattle Seahawks team that I think are starting to show up and show out and showing that they are going to be a factor going forward on this Seahawks team.
Yeah, Miles, I could not agree with you more. This is an exciting time for Seattle. Look, I'm coming from a hotel room a few hours away from my brother-in-law's rehearsal dinner, but this Seattle story is that important. We got to talk about it right now. That's why I think it's a great report you dug up. But before we get into that, Seahawks fans, look, you've seen the first preseason game. You've seen a lot of training camp. Now is the time in the comment section below to give us your breakout candidate, the one guy who's really made a name for himself so far. Make sure you put that guy in the comment section below. But all right, Miles, let me throw it back over to you now. What's the latest out of Seattle?
Yeah, Nick, so the biggest upgrade I would say is Seattle this offseason was the defensive side of the ball, specifically corner got really great with the addition to Von Witherspoon, but linebacker got a huge upgrade. Jordan Brooks was a solid linebacker last few seasons, but he could have used a little bit of help. They obviously add Bobby Wagner, who is huge for this linebacking core. But, Nick, they made another sneaky addition. Former Steelers first-round pick Devin Bush comes into the fold, and this guy was a surprise to me, and I think to a lot of Seahawks fans. He showed up in a big way in this first preseason game and showing that he could be a factor going forward on this team. I think he's going to be really great. But let's get into the story and we can break it down afterwards. This was from Steelers Now, surprisingly, former Steeler playing for the Seahawks, but it said, when Bush took the field against the Minnesota Vikings for his Seahawks debut Thursday night, it could be the start of something new for the former Steelers linebacker. To his credit, Bush took the opportunity given to him by the Seahawks and ran with it in a big way. Bush ended up playing with a first-team defense and racked up 6 tackles and a tackle for loss. His big highlight was a big hit on a kickoff return, showing that he can stand out in different ways. That hit came on Bush's first ever kickoff coverage snap, given the Steelers never made him do that. But it was a very successful one for Bush, who will need to play some special teams with Seattle as he evolves as a veteran. Bush said, "That was my first ever kickoff in my NFL career." He said, "I'm glad it went that way. It was fun, and I liked it." Bush looked like the best linebacker playing on the team tonight, with Jordan Brooks still recovering from a torn ACL and Bobby Wagner not playing. His quality of play earned a shout-out from Seattle Seahawks coach Pete Carroll following their win over the Vikings in Seattle. He said, "Devin Bush made a few nice tackles for us tonight." Carroll said, "The linebackers have really stepped up." So, Nick, I think there's a few key things to pick out of this for us to talk about. One is Devin Bush is having, his renaissance period, a change of roles. He's becoming a valuable special teams asset in only his first ever special teams snaps. He made a good play, looking like he could develop there. He is now showing that he's a serviceable linebacker to be a backup, whether Brooks is still out from injury, whether they need to spell some guys. I think that Bush could be a very valuable asset to this team, and to get noticed by Pete Carroll, a guy that knows really great defenses. We think all the way back to the Legion of Boom. Surprisingly, Bobby Wagner is on that team as well. But this is a team that I think has really grown, and now they have a lot of depth at the linebacker position, something they did not previously have. But, Nick, I'll let you get on into it. What do you think about Bush's first appearance with Seattle, and what does this mean for the team going forward?
So I think the most important part of the whole story is that Bush was playing special teams, and not just because he was forced to, because he was excited about it, right? He was getting a renaissance opportunity, a chance to kind of revitalize his NFL career. And you don't see that very much. A former first-round pick, second-round pick kind of guys, they'll just run away from special teams to kick game as much as possible. They want to be every down players, maybe some third down situational stuff if they have to settle for that. But they will not play special teams as a general rule. They just don't want to. They push back against it. They're very egotistical in that manner, very me-focused, very me-centric. I love the self-awareness from Bush, understanding that at this point in his career, that's the way he's going to make an impact. He's not going to be ahead of Wagner. He's not going to be ahead of Brooks on the depth chart, right? He's going to have to make his money on special teams as a depth guy and in certain packages. I like him more as a goal line, maybe some nickel packages as well, can do a lot of different things. But I love the fact that he's willing to do that kind of stuff. And I love the fact that the Seahawks put him in a position to do that, because you've got a young guy here. He's still a young guy, like in Bush. This is a guy who couldn't cut it with the Pittsburgh Steelers, ran into a lot of issues in terms of playing time, working in their scheme, but he's still a young guy with a lot of talent. I love the fact that the Seahawks brought him in, gave him this opportunity, and said, "Hey, look, we'll give you a chance," and he's taking it full throttle. That's an indication of what Pete Carroll has done in terms of the culture. He brings in guys that want to win and guys who want to compete. They don't care if they're blocking field goals or playing every single snap. They don't care if they're only the holder or if they're catching 100 passes a season. This is the kind of culture that wins, even if you don't have necessarily the top flight talent, which, by the way, the Seahawks are loading up on a lot of talent very, very quickly. But while you're trying to get up to that high talent level, the way you can win is if you have guys that are team focused who just want to go out there and compete, and that's exactly who the Seahawks are bringing in, and that's exactly the kind of guy that Bush is.
Yeah, Nick, and I think one other thing is Devin Bush had a huge amount of talent coming out of Michigan. He was a top 10 pick for the Steelers. This guy was supposed to come in and fill the shoes of Ryan Shazier, a really great linebacker for the Steelers. Unfortunately, had to leave the game due to injury. But, it just never came to pass. So I think the Seattle Seahawks have seen the potential there. They tap into this guy. They get him, and like we said, in his renaissance period. Fifth-year option had been declined. Maybe comes in, has a little chip on his shoulder, showing that he has something to prove. Like you said, he's still a relatively young player in the NFL. So I think this guy still has a lot of life left, and I think he could be a big, big factor going forward, having to learn behind Bobby Wagner, one of the greatest to ever do it. I think this could be a huge opportunity for Bush and really a big win for Seattle by putting their trust in Devin Bush.